Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Hi, this is Mary Madeiras, and welcome to Your Superior Self.
Mary. How are you? Thank you so much
I'm
for joining the show.
I'm great, Trey. Thanks for having me.
Um, this is going to be a fun conversation because you have a new book out. Well, not out, excuse me. You have a book that is coming out that I cannot
hmm
wait to read.
hmm
Um, give everyone like a quick rundown what that's about.
Um, well, the book is we're speaking about the Akashic Records today, which I'm sure your listeners know by now, and the book is sort of a compilation of downloads that I was receiving from my work in the records, from my own work in my own records when I was studying the Akashic Records, as well as other really amazing, um, I don't know what to call it, juicy divine information that comes through that will benefit humanity,
Mm,
basically. It's interesting. Do you remember the book Conversations with God?
yes.
Neil Donald
Yep.
Walsh.
hmm
Um, it's I imagine the same thing that happened to him I'm experiencing because I began working in the records thinking, okay, let me open my records. I'll work on healing my own wounds, see what's up, that kind of thing, get overviews, get some clarity. And then as I would ask specific questions, other amazing beyond nuggets of information would just pour through. And I would start sharing it. Years ago, I would share it with my friends and they would say, oh my gosh, can I share it? This is amazing. Because it's divine. It's coming from divine, just as Neil Donald Walsh, in his words, it was coming from God, what God is for him. And
So how does
so,
that come to you though? Like, how does it come?
well, it's interesting. It comes, see, I really should, can I share with how I came to the records? And then
Yeah.
I think
So
it'll make
I
more
didn't mean to
sense.
jump the gun. I'm excited.
No, that's okay. I am too. It's so hard because I never know where to begin, but I'm
Yeah,
going to
you're good.
begin where it began for me.
Let's do it.
Um, Most of my career was and has been, still is, I'm still working in media, but has been in television as a director. And however, when I was really little, I do remember feeling a connection to something beyond myself. I'll say that. Some people call it religions, whatever. I grew up in a religion that I don't follow anymore, but I felt something. I knew something really important was there that was greater than all of us. And so put that on hold. Then I went barreling into this career and a very exciting career in television. And then I every so often would have psychic readings, as probably most of us do. And I went to my regular psychic reader, and she said to me, "I you have there's this dude over your shoulder."
There's this dude.
A- and I said, what, who is he? And she said, well, he looks like a genie. He's actually very good looking. And I said, this is cool, but I want to know who he is. And she said he protects, well, two things she said that were really telling. One was he told her that he oversees my Akashic records. And I asked her then, I didn't know. I said, well, what are the Akashic records? And she said, I don't know, but he's saying that's what he does.
Mhm.
And the other thing that was telling was he said that he translates sacred geometry into creative ideas that then he gives to me. And what's interesting is whenever I be on sets working with actors or doing something very creative, I would get an idea that I knew was not, I didn't conjure it up because I would come in with my plan for the scenes, whatever. And then something else would happen and I never thought it. I just would go, let's try this. And a lot of the actors would be like, that's a great idea. Where did you get that? And I would say, I don't know, it just came in. I used to just say that without thinking about what I was saying
Yeah.
until that reading. So I went home, I looked up the Akashic Records, went online, Googled it,
hmm
and I got a hit, but I wasn't like hit over the head. But I really, I felt something and then forgot about it and went back into my job. And then what's interesting is I was at this metaphysical bookstore out here in LA, the Bodhi Tree. I think they're still there.
hmm
And I was in the back room by myself, and there was this book teetering off the shelf above me. And I looked up, and it was the book How to Read Your Akashic Records. And I was like, we get signs. It's so interesting. And so I pulled the book down. I inhaled it. I like to use those words because that's how it felt. And I began opening my records because it's by Linda Howe, and it was just so easy. And the way it works for me, getting back to your question, is when I open my records using a sacred prayer or anyone's records, I get blocks of thought, sometimes images. It's not psychic. It's not chatting with somebody on the other side. It's a dimension of consciousness, of divine consciousness, that contains the everything that every soul has ever thought, said, or done over the course of its existence, as well as future possibilities for the soul.
Hmm.
So I totally resonated with it, and I just kept hearing blocks of thought that were not mine.
Hmm.
And so I just began to write them. At first I was writing them, and then I decided to actually study. And I studied at the through the Linda House Center for Akashic Studies out of Chicago. And that's where I worked on my own. All she has us do is open our records like crazy, because when we open our own records and access that divine, it's an entourage of divine energies that are overseeing our own soul's journey, our soul's chosen journey. So the idea is that each soul chooses its journey in each incarnation. And when I started to read about that, I knew it. I just knew it. My being knew it. So I knew I was supposed to be doing this.
Hmm.
And what happens is, like, sometimes people get a little confused about that, because they'll say, well, what do you mean? I I came into a family that was a creepy family. My soul manifested that? No. It's a bigger overview of what the soul is doing in a lifetime. And we get to discover that when we are in our records. I guess, well, for me, when I'm working with someone and myself, I will hear, sometimes I get past lives. They'll show me a lifetime, not in a year, because there's no time in quantum. In quantum divine, there's no time. And so I'll hear, you were this, or I'll see people in woods in ancient times. I'll see them as warriors, as leaders. And the idea is energy. We know energy never dies. It just morphs. It shifts and changes like a snake. So think of this is really cool. We have in our own DNA, in the essence of our soul, it contains every lifetime we've ever lived. So we can literally, once we discover a particular lifetime, we can tap into that lifetime by just intention. It's
Hmm.
really cool.
Like,
And
explain that
activate
a little
that.
bit more. Like, how can I activate that? Like, if I,
So for example, if somebody gets a diagnosis of cancer, let's say,
Mhm.
they can go into their records, and they may discover that, I mean, our soul's it's the same soul incarnating over and over. So we can discover a particular lifetime that soul existed in, and they lived as maybe a human being, and there was no cancer. That means the energy of no cancer, because it didn't exist in that lifetime, is still with us, because DNA never dies.
Hmm.
So the DNA, because we're so used to thinking linearly in our third dimensional realm. Our minds want to figure it out, logical, I don't get it, kind of thing. Well,
Mhm.
if we just relax that and go, oh, cool, what if? See, I have a really amazing, like, imagination. I always have, and it's probably why I went into television, and now I'm writing fictional stuff. So the records, the divine uses my imagination in a direct link to the person's soul. It's a match to the person's soul. They use my way of speaking and my imagination. Kind of happens with all healers,
Mhm.
really. They're using the outer essences are using our bodies and our sense of ourselves to heal, right? So if we know, when we discover another lifetime, and let's say in this lifetime we'd like to be more, I don't know, more warrior like, or we want to experience love in a certain way more,
Mhm.
or self-love more, we can discover a past lifetime through the records where we had immense self-love. So how is it done? It's what happens, this is just the divine, the most amazing part of divine. Once we talk about it, the divine moves on the spoken word. So once we have that conversation and a client or myself, I open my records and I will see things and go, whoa. Once we go, whoa, that's it.
Hmm.
It is literally that simple. And then
Wow.
something starts to shift. And of course it is intention,
Yeah.
it is knowing, it is
Energy? Is it
it is
energy?
energy, and
Yeah.
it's believing also. Not belief like a belief system, but it's sort of like going, if we could just be wide open to the possibilities of, hey, not everything, there are things going on that maybe we don't see with our eyes and we can't figure out.
Yeah. It's
And
not
yeah,
yeah, it's
go
not
ahead.
being it's not being a reductionist and reducing it down to the mechanical parts, right?
Exactly,
It's being like
exactly.
an idealist and having an open mind, and this possibly could have happened, right? Like that's like I that's how I look at it. Everything, right? Like I know, but
Hmm.
I have this feeling. Like I've had visions. I've had experiences where I've had conversations with I don't know. I feel like I'm channeling something. I've had
Hmm.
um just experiences in my life that I can't explain, like right, like I'll go into these creative states and I'll write a paper for school or something, like I'm the old guy
Hmm.
going back to school, and I'll write a paper and I'll read the paper after it's graded, and I'm like, who the heck wrote this? I didn't write
Yep,
this.
that's
You
it.
know what I mean? Like
That's
I'll
it.
have deja vu is basically
Hmm.
cognition, right? Or premonition, whatever it is, where you predict the future. Like I know people have had this, and a lot of people are like, it's deja vu. I'm just, I've been here before. And I spoke with somebody who was a psychic and was like, yeah, that's you, that you're just realizing that you predicted the future where you're at. Like, and I'm like, what? I'm like, that's just a thing. And it's just
Hmm.
staying open minded to that. But I've stumbled upon this idea of, because I've had conversations with who I feel is God, and I've noticed the fact that there's a lot of suffering because of the ego, a lot of suffering because
Hmm.
people forget why we're here really.
Hmm.
They get caught up in the Western mindset of hustle and bustle, and there are a lot of stress and anxiety and disorders. And I've asked God in my way, how can I help the suffering? And He's like, use your voice. Okay, I'm using my voice in the podcast, but I'm also running daily. I'm also doing things that better myself, but I feel like I'm projecting that energy out into the universe,
Hmm.
and that energy is a collective consciousness. I call it super. It's not like I didn't name this. I don't have a patent on the name. Super
Hmm.
consciousness or collective consciousness, that I think that I'm adding that energy to, or my consciousness is, I'm leveling up my energy to receive higher information, so that way I can become better and project higher energy out into the universe, and then contribute to the world in that way. Like I'm never going to end suffering, but I can at least project better, higher energy to help somebody else. Like I might not have the right things to say, but something about that moment, either my energy that I'm vibing or something that I say in an instant, is going to help them with their suffering. I had a Akashic record reading. What was it, last week? It was last week,
Mm.
and some of the stuff was just pretty phenomenal. He and mentioned that what helped me in this life was I needed to balance the scale a little bit more. Like I'm one side of me is very stoic, and one side of me is very lighthearted and loving and energetic. And I need to balance that scale because, recently I've been too much of the stoic side of me. And then when I start
Mhm.
balancing that scale, going more so into lightheartedness, that's when things will start opening up for me, success or whatever you want to term that. I'm not really worried about that. I'm more so worried about, I won't even say I'm worried about it, but my mission that I want to achieve is helping the suffering that is out there, like helping people realize that we're here um, for the curriculum, like of life, and to how to develop as a soul and to awaken, right? To wake
Mhm.
up out of
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
sleep that we're in.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm really into what you're doing, and what's really fascinating to me is that you were a director, successful director. You're still
Mhm.
doing that, right? And
Yeah.
how, like, talk to me about that, right? Like when you started having, or I guess when you felt comfortable enough to put this book out there, like, were you nervous about that? Like, because of what people were going to think of you or people were going to
Mm-mm.
say or anything like that?
No, I'm lucky enough to have chosen a career where anything goes, really. I mean,
Mm,
think about, you know, storytelling.
no.
I mean, look at Harry Potter. Harry Potter, I mean, she was just wanting to write stories for her children. That was it. And look what happened.
Yeah.
Um, so what's interesting is I've learned so much through, by the way, thank you for sharing what you're sharing about what you just shared about your mission and who you are. Um, because it is directly in line with what I always hear from the Akashic realm. One of the many things, which is, you know, we raise, when we raise our vibration, we contribute to the expansion of the universe and the cosmos. And what the records have shared with me is, and I resonate with this, is that that is why we're here. We're here to participate in expansion. And of course, love is at the center of everything. We know that. And it gets tossed around a lot, but it's huge,
Hmm.
the idea of love. I was also getting a strong hit, and then I'll go back to your question. I don't know what to call it, a hit. About, did anything come up in the Akashic reading that you had about did any past life come up for you? Not that I'm not in your records right now, but I don't know why I just got a hit about you having ended suffering for many, many, many in some other lifetime. You actually
He
know
said
that already.
he
Hmm.
said he said that I would. So we talked about, I think it was one past life where I was a wise man turned king or something
Hmm.
like that,
Hmm.
and that was basically it. And he said that that former life was helping me now,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I don't know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's really, really interesting. And then I was going to ask too, have you in your entire life been uh, triggered by suffering and wanting to help end suffering?
Yeah,
You have,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, so I've always had this heart. I've always had this heart, right? Like,
Hmm.
my suffering is that I'm too hard on myself. I don't self love enough,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Right.
and I've always wanted to, like, I've always had this, I guess, need for the stage or like this type of work.
Hmm.
But I've never had that confidence to speak in public or speak in front of people because I never thought I was smart enough. I didn't think that I had anything worth to say. Very scared, but I had these natural abilities to lead. Um, I don't know where
Hmm.
they came from, and that's why I was asking him. I was like, in this life, what past life can I pull from that will help me out in this one? And that's when he said the king part of it. But I feel like I do have these natural abilities to lead, but it's like the suffering part of it is this. I know how I suffered because I was so caught up in this idea that I had to create this podcast to be something that it wasn't, like the business model of it. Like I had to
Hmm.
get sponsorships, I had to do this, and I was working my ass off to create something that it wasn't supposed to be. And I hit so much resistance and I didn't know why I was hitting resistance. And it tore me apart. It tore me apart. It tore, my family. It was just, we were in a bad spot. And um, when I started doing work on myself, when I started to become more conscious, more aware about my spirituality, about, reading more books, one of the publicists that I work with, Sarah Scarlett, she came out of my life out of nowhere. I have no idea where she came from. Like I didn't reach out to her, and she started giving me some more mystical authors, more
Cool.
esoteric
Hmm.
books to read, right? And I started
Hmm.
reading them, and I
Hmm.
was like, triggered, psychology. I'm ready to go after it. And then I started reading more and more and more, and now I'm just consumed with it. Just this higher learning, this higher self that I want to connect with, that I feel like I can connect with when I meditate. And it's, now I'm talking to Paul Selig in the guides, and I'm talking to you. I'm reading books about Ram Dass and his outlook on life, and it's helped me, identify the ego and see what that is. Like
Mhm, mhm.
I am I am at a spot now where I see where I was at, and I knew how much pain it had caused me, and I want to help others that are there that can't see it because they're asleep. And I know
Mhm.
that I'm not going to be able to shake them out of that sleep. It's going to be something in their lives when they're ready to hear it. And I just hope that something that I've done, some energy that I put out into the universe is going to be able to contribute to that awakening.
Yeah. So the key is knowing that we are that source, that we are so filled around and about. We are that source. That that's the new message. It sounds like it's not new, but it really is a new message. That is, we are that. You
Mhm.
know, God, source, universe, whatever. When you said the publicist sort of came out of the universe, gave you that obviously because you were a match to it. It was an energetic match. Boom, there it was. There she was. And so this is who you are. So this is
Mhm.
what we learn, and the records remind us because again, the records are literally, when when here's the thing, when we're at least in my work, when we open our records or another or I have a client and the client's records are open, often the client will say to me, "Oh, you're so good. This is what was amazing." And I say, "Well, you are because you are speaking to the divine aspect of yourself, and I am just the carrier. I'm hearing it. I'm taking it's, because quantum has to squeeze into third dimensional, into imagination, into speech. Same thing with you. So you're obviously connecting up. And I kept hearing the word, you're connecting, Trey, with the field.
Mhm.
It's the field. And the field is where everything exists,
Yeah.
right? But
But
we
there's
don't see
doubt to
it.
that. There's so much doubt. Like I doubted myself. Like I don't I
Yeah.
like
Oh,
so
so did I. Oh my
you know
gosh. Oh my
like I'm
gosh.
like I'm going nuts. Like I don't know. I feel like
So did I.
am I the one who's saying this right now? Am I the one that's
Oh my
producing these
gosh.
words?
You know
You
what?
know?
I almost didn't do the work. I almost didn't move into studying, becoming a practitioner because, and then what happened was I would open my records and then sit at my computer and this stuff would come out. And when I would share it with my either partner or friends, whatever, they kept saying to me, this is amazing. And I used to say to them, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm making this up. I don't know. And they would say to me, but you don't even speak this way. We know you. There's something you're tapping into here, and please pay attention. So I don't know if that's
Mhm.
happened for you, but I also would hear things, and I do, that are not coming from my mind. I know it. And I'll be like, whoa. But now, so I resisted it. I really did. You know, it's interesting. The three absolutes of the Akashic records are fear not, judge not, and resist not. Those are really big ones,
Hmm.
right? We don't have to be afraid of it. And there's no, imagine this, there's no possible way that you would be absorbing, resonating, attracting to you this area of where you can't get enough of it if that were not already who you are. You don't have to become anything, you're already that, and you're being, and the universe is just giving you, here, this is who you are, this is who you are, this is who you are. And then I guess like me, I realized, okay, I get to be a third dimensional person. Because I remembered hearing something on, you were sharing on one of your podcasts about being from a blue collar family.
Mhm.
So am I.
Mhm.
New York City, brothers, a father who was a plumber in New York, very blue collar. And I was the only girl. And I was just like, whoa. But you know what? And I should say, it has become so important because now I'm so rooted in third dimension that I don't go flitting off lofty la la land. I'm not up in la la land. I'm very rooted, as my family was, in 3D. And
Hmm.
so I know how to speak 3D, yet it's totally non 3D coming in, right? So I imagine that's what's going on for you as well. And it's great that you're doing this work and being this voice. It's really great that you're doing this.
Yeah, It's great. I mean, I really feel a high vibration when I have
Hmm.
conversations like this, when I connect, because I can't, you're right, I can't get enough of it. Like just the
Me
idea
too.
of being connected to something that because like, I don't know, it's just, you grew up and you're, programmed to think that you got to live your, you got to, can't do this, can't do that, you got to be
Oh yeah.
perfect, and
Yep.
then like to
Yep.
think that,
Get a
yeah,
job. Get a
yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah, society, like I felt terrible. Like I was 21, I had dropped out of college,
Hmm.
and society was like, "You're a bum. You're a bum. Like you need to go get a job, get married, have kids." Society was telling me this,
Hmm.
not just my
Hmm.
parents, but everybody around me. And I never really explored what I really liked. I never really explored what
Hmm.
really fired me up, and I didn't know. Like I don't regret my path. Like it led me to where I needed to be right
Absolutely.
now here. Right. Like
Yeah.
it has taken a long time for me to awaken, but once you awaken, like there's no going back. Like there is no faking it. And like, oh man, once you see the Wizard of Oz, there's no closing that curtain. Like there is
No, there's not.
absolutely,
Here's a
like,
suggestion. You always were awake.
hmm,
Hmm.
yeah,
Because the idea, this is another thing that the records impart constantly, and it probably is in the book, it's in the book, is that we have perceptions. Perceptions get us in trouble. We perceive things. And they always, and the records always remind us that there is no right and wrong. There's just choice.
hmm,
And we are, you already were that. There, like what they've said to me a lot is there is no you become awake. You already are awake. It's just now you're awake in a different way because the world is changing and you're applying it in a different way. And this is the other thing that's really cool that they talk about a lot is a lot of us think, and I did. Um, I mean, I'm a living and breathing example of like garbage that we struggle with. And I dug in and listened to the records and went and had my ahas and went, oh my God, I think I get this. And now I can, because I'm a living example of it, I'm probably doing the right thing by being, by opening records. Um, is that when we have different parts of our, we call them careers, that's a perception too, by the way. Often I have clients, including me, going, well, I did this for those 10 years and then I did that. And I've had people ask me, and I'll get back to your original question here, which was like, well, you were in television and now you're doing this. Like, huh? Well, in the beginning, I was like, what do I do? Do I let go of that career and I go over and do this? That was an old perception that I had that I grew up with, by the way, in belief systems around me. No, everything we do, and you actually said it, you said it leads to now, it all plays a part in the soul's journey. Every aspect of everything in our lives is a specific chunk of energy that is always a part of our soul's journey. There's never, I made a mistake, now that's over there. Ooh, look what I did. That was the wrong choice in my career. And then what we do is when I open people's records, we look at those parts of their career like a mind map and bring the energy forward and go, oh my gosh, look, so you did that. Imagine if you took that and now married it to this right now, what does it look like? And I mean, there have been new things created, new brands created through people in their records because they didn't know that they were compartmentalizing aspects of their career. And we get to look at them as energy and bring them together. And all of a sudden, this new, unique something comes out of it, it becomes birthed, right?
hmm,
So what happened for me was, okay, television, that's storytelling, it's creativity. I always had a sense, as I sense right now that you have always been awake, I always had a sense of a very powerful essence, divine, a field, whatever you want to call it, source, always. And I was always living that, and I wasn't knowing that I was living it. I was always caring for people. I resonate with you, what you said about suffering. I actually, and I don't know if this is true for you, I remember, and to this, well, it's a little less now that I've been working in the records because I understand things a little better. But growing up, when other people got hurt, or when animals got hurt, or children got hurt, it hurt me more than if I got hurt.
hmm,
And I don't know if you've experienced this. And then when I was, in my 20s and 30s, I was like, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me because nobody's hurting me, but I feel I'm ripped apart by this. and it's humanity hurting humanity, and it would just make me crazy and upset me. Um, that's because we're we have, well, I learned from past lives what I was in past lives. So you came up with the sage, the king. A sage is going to be able to be a high vibrational being, right? And see. And if we can see everything, we're going to probably feel it, especially if we're in bodies.
Yeah.
We're going to feel it. And suffering is a tough one. It's really tough because we just want it to go away and we want people to feel better, right?
Mhm.
So I realized that even in my work, working as a director, I was making people feel better, even if we were doing some romance scene or a shooting scene. The people were feeling better. They wanted to work with me, and I didn't know why. I just thought it was because I love what I'm doing and I love people. No, it was because I was living, breathing that essence, and I already had it. And I didn't know I already had it until I started working more in the records. So,
Sure.
what we discover by working in our records or visiting our records is that we are divine. We are exactly the same as that divine source that we go, whoa, God, whatever source, light. We are that. We are the light is us, we are that,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes if we start trying to think about it, well, I don't feel it. Well, that's maybe because the mind comes in and then the ego conscious and the collective ego conscious that Eckhart Tolle talks about. That ego conscious pops in and it just, he refers to it as a monster and giggles.
Sure.
It really is that ego conscious, not the healthy ego. It's tricky. It
Yeah.
can just sneak in there and then all of a sudden you have low self-worth, a
Yeah.
little nugget of it that can make us second guess ourselves or whatever. So what happened for me was when I first dove into the records, I was doing less television, of course. I wasn't worried what people would think really, because I wasn't actually contracted at that point. It was a time out in my life. I'd moved from New York to out here. I'm from New York originally, came out here. And the last show I had been working on, which was General Hospital, that soap. It was no. What happened was a different. It was a upper management change, and my contract was up, and they were making changes. So I went like boom, bouncing out after 25, almost 30 years of never having that happen, and I went, whoa! Now it was the greatest gift ever because I have to say that all those years working at a studio or working for a network, I'll say a particular network, I wasn't a match to my soul felt like I was missing something. I think I've written that in my website. Something was missing for me. I didn't like how people were being treated. It was all about money, making money, making money. Everything was every minute that we were taping, you have to go faster, faster, faster. And when actors wanted to breathe into a scene as a director, I wasn't allowed to let them because there was no time, because it was money. And I was just sort of like shredding on some level, didn't know it, kept going because of my blue collar.
Yeah.
My father used to say, I'll die with my boots on. That was his saying all the time. And I think I had that from growing up in it, like, no, I got to keep going.
Yeah.
And then finally the gift was, oh, we're going to do some changes here. And then the records popped in and I went, okay. But I always wanted to be storytelling, directing. And then the records told me or imparted to me that what they showed me what I was that my record showed me a writer as a writer. And I remember writing, I'm writing my records and hearing. And I said, no, I'm not. Like I'm talking back to the records. I think it's so funny. Like, no, I'm not. And I said, I'm a director. And they were like, your records, your soul's journey shows you writing. And so it took me a while, not just writing the book, that was part of it. Actually, they've given me 3 books to write. It's not just the books, it was other stuff. And then I realized one day, well, what do I really know how to do? I know how
Mhm.
to do television. And so I wrote a teen series because I'm very concerned about teens and what's going on. And I wrote a sci-fi. I tapped into all the things I know really well. It happens to be ETs and UFOs stuff. And not in a kooky way, but in a very serious way. And that's another conversation. But I was like, what do I know real well?
Mhm.
And it was sci-fi, young people, storytelling, and directing. And I blended them all together through my work in the records, by the way. And I wrote this teen series that's now being pitched. Um, I'm hoping it's going to get on Netflix. It's scripted. And then I also wound up writing a screenplay recently, and based on a book, and it's the untold story of Mary Magdalene. However, it's
Hmm.
not a biblical story. It's all these modern storylines popped in my sleep time. The universe just gave me. So once I said yes to what I was receiving in my own records about being a writer, let's say, I finally, and I have to tell you, Trey, it wasn't immediate. I was just like, I'm not a writer. Ooh, like what? And I just kept resisting it, resisting it.
Hmm.
And then, like, just one day, it was like, I said yes. Once I said yes, somebody came to me and wanted me to write a screenplay. It just
Wow.
happened, right? Yes. Because when we say yes to what our soul has already chosen, everything opens up and it's easy. And I was going to ask you earlier when you were talking about sort of absorbing as much metaphysical, material and high conscious beings and what they do. You lose time? Do you like
Oh
all of
yeah,
a sudden?
absolutely.
Right. See, that's the other, that's the other, what's the word? That's how
Like
we know. We know we're
I
doing
get
the
in the
thing we're supposed
flow.
to do.
Yeah, it's like a flow state that I get into. It's like, oh,
Yeah. And
that
then you don't
whole
even know, like, what happened? Where did, oh my
yeah,
gosh, 5 hours went by.
yeah. I mean, my
Right.
wife is so tired of me buying books on
On
just
Amazon.
metaphysical stuff.
Yeah,
It's
that's great
insane.
though. Good for you.
Because I just I love the idea of just being able to tap into that source. Like I just love being able to
Mhm.
receive things, information, or a better feeling, a higher vibration to help others. I mean, like you said, I love kids. Like I whenever I see a kid, because I have three, I just immediately feel my kids, right? Like whenever I see a kid suffering or something, man, it hits me right in the heart. So if I don't know who was I was reading with one time, but they were saying there's a lot of I'll give back at some point in my life, and I hope so because like I really want to give back to like some kids and like with education and
Mhm. Mhm.
food and clothes, and I just want to give back so much to the world and like I just want to give back to like the kids. Like I just feel like this strong pull to help them because I see my kids in them, right? Like I
Sure.
there's a couple authors that I've read, and they talk about their journeys over east, and they talk about the Himalayas and some of the mountain children over there, and their education is, not what it's supposed to be, and it's I don't know if I'll ever make it over there, but I want to contribute in some way, whether it's a foundation or something like, because I see my kids and I see um, um, I don't take for granted what they have, but I feel like, I see a child and I see a young soul and I see a young being that's just starting out and I know it's their path where they're at. But
Yeah,
any
that's the
any way
mhm.
I can help them along that path, like I would
Mhm.
feel better.
Yeah, and it's tough when we do know, like, the law of attraction and that when we know it's, that soul's path, it's tough because it's like, "Okay, now how much do I
How
am I
much do you
inter"
play? Yeah. How much do you come into
exactly, am
play?
I interfering? But, or and I was just gonna remind you that the platform that you have, lends itself beautifully to other creative ways, that you can be making those, supporting that, supporting it, this is something else I've come to feel and see and learn is the old the old systems, because a lot of the systems are broken and they're busting apart, and we know this,
Mhm.
and they're toppling. And so this is a very exciting time. So the way of giving back has been traditionally, it still works, to wait until we're in a position and then we can give the way we know, whether it's money or other creative things that maybe you launch or an organization you launch. However, the platform that you have right now, there's so much information about people who are suffering that we need to hear. Because when people, I really feel that the only reason, one of the reasons that more people are not helped on our planet is because people just don't know. we're not going to see it on television. We're not going to see it on news. News is failing us right now. It needs to be reinvented or thrown upside down.
Yeah, you're not going
And
to see it in universities either, just because of the,
no, you're
you
not going to
know.
see it in universities. That's right. So you're not, so most likely the systems aren't going to uh, alert or let people know. But what you have using your voice, um, oh my gosh, I don't know if you are doing that, but there's an opportunity to like just build a month around something or, uh, you know, around a topic, a particular country,
Mhm.
and not that you have to stop what you're doing and only focus on the Himalayas, let's say, and these kids. Not at all. You can blend what you have. You could bring spiritual people in with, you
Sure.
know, or spiritual people
Bring
from those
awareness
areas.
to it, right? Bring awareness to it.
Absolutely, because when people and podcasting especially, when people are listening, they're like their hearts get activated and then they want to know
Mhm.
what to do. Um, and it's interesting because part of the other, and I'll share this because I think it's important to share this because we're both on the same wavelength, and I'm very happy about this with what you're saying, and you're tapping into something about me, which is this. One of the other reasons that my book got put on hold a little bit is a very dear friend of mine's child, she's 6 years old, may have been molested by the dad. Maybe. I'm
Mm,
going to say maybe because we're on a podcast.
sure.
Here's the thing, the system is not investigating it. They're
Mm,
in the courts and everything. They're not investigating. The child has disclosed to me. She's like a daughter to me, a second
mhm.
daughter, a daughter. And so I'm learning about now the whole United States and what's going on, and that the court systems, I've got data. This one heartfelt situation that's breaking me apart, and my wife, we're breaking apart over this, is um is a bigger issue,
Mhm.
and nobody's talking about it. So we have judges that are leaning towards the wrong parent because there are antiquated laws and they have to follow those laws. Um, Thousands of children return to the abuser by the courts in 55,000 a year in the United States. So, I guess I'm using the thing I'm saying right now by saying it in this conversation with
Bringing
you,
awareness to that, yeah.
bringing awareness to it. It's just, if I think if more people would know, and I'm actually trying to figure out, do I do a Zoom show? Like, what do I do? Television shows, they're not going to buy a show like
Yeah,
that.
no,
They're
no.
just not there yet. No, they're not there yet. The networks, but it's troubling to me. And how about sex trafficking?
Yeah,
Huge.
yeah.
It keep, and you'll have conversations, and I don't know if you're having conversations, and it'll come up in conversations with colleagues of mine. They'll be like, "Oh my God, yes, it's horrible." Well, what are we doing about it?
Nothing, because
Nothing.
that's how people, they get it. That's how they watch their porn. It's on the
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like, because you're
On the
sitting there
dark web.
watching on the dark
Yes.
web, and and these girls that are getting trafficked out of New York, LA, these big cities, Miami,
Yeah. So I brought those
Mexico.
storylines. I brought exactly those storylines right into the series with, it's sci-fi, so it'll be like a Stranger Things. It's like Stranger Things meets 13 Reasons Why. It's like that
Mhm.
kind of, and the sci-fi is a different aspect of sci-fi that hasn't been done yet. So I did that because I know how to entertain. And I'm like, okay, I know how to entertain. And that's what the record showed me, where I thought my entertainment part of my life was going to be over. And now I'm going to be here and do spiritual work. No, they're coming together. And that is a new message that keeps coming up, which is that, people separate. We tend to, in the past, I grew up separating the spiritual practices from life, when really, like the Akashic records show us, like they're a breathing essence of like our truth and who we are from moment to moment. The records show us that. So spirituality and life are the same thing. They're not separate. And I think that there is this tendency. Look at even books. There are books about life and life, like the 7 steps to success or something. And
Yeah.
then there's books on spirituality, but they're the same. They're now together. We live life as spiritual and spiritual as life. Taking actions and doing what we call work. I don't even like that word work.
It's experience, right? I guess.
Yeah,
More
it's
experience.
experience. That's right. And it's joy, and it's living what we've chosen to come and do. And when it's not working, or the signs when we're off our soul's path are sometimes illness, certainly unhappiness, broken relationships, all the things that people come to therapy for. All of those things are just simply signs that we're a little bit off. I describe the being off our soul's journey as like a sprocket that is out of its groove slightly. And when
Mm.
we visit the records and we're having conversation within the Akashic records, it just gently goes right back in. And it's not like consciously. It's like all of a sudden the client goes away, and then I hear from them a week later and they say, "Oh my gosh, I listened back to my reading and I have all these things that are happening." That's just because it went snap right in, nice and easy.
Mm.
That's the power of divine. I give it to divine. Divine has its way.
Wow. That
Hmm.
yeah, it's about balance. Like I'm trying to learn how to
Hmm.
do that balance thing. So I guess you record and then allow them to have it. And that's great. I think that's cool that I
You know,
guess you
it's
do it on
really,
Zoom.
yeah, I do Zoom, and well, I used to do it in person. I mean, 1 week when I
Yeah,
could.
yeah, yeah.
I'm in Ojai. You know, what's interesting too is the records, the energies. They're not ghosts or beings. They're literally light energies. They say constantly and repeatedly that when we listen back, or if we've written the read back, when we listen back to our recording, it's different. Not because we've changed. It's literally different. And I've had people write back to me and go, "You're right. It wasn't the same. I It's like another reading." So that's because divine is timeless,
Mm.
because there is no time.
Well, that frequency, right? Like when we have a
Mhm.
conversation, you get that heart center activated. I get that heart center activated because we're talking about
Yes.
things that we very passionate about and that we're connected to. And people that don't know that vibration that we're talking about, raising your vibration, I feel it in my heart. I don't, Mary, is that the same for you? Like you feel like your heart
Yes.
energy vibrate and warm and feel good? Because people have asked me, like, what are you talking about when you say, your vibration or frequency?
Mhm.
That's the heart center
Mhm.
is like just
Yes,
exploding.
it is.
Um, and when we're discussing things, when I have my reading from last week and I was looking
Mhm.
at it, and you're right, it is different, right? But because I think we come down off of that high, right? So we get back into the low frequency,
That's right.
the plane, or what is it, the plane
It's
of
denser.
forms is dense, and then we look
Yes.
at this, which is still resonating because this is like when I talk about me working out or doing things, the podcast, putting that high energy out there. You cannot take that away, right? So when I look at this reading, I see the high energy that's associated with it, and I go back to that place.
Of course, because it's who you are. Because that reading was and still is who you are. So when you reread it, you're reactivating the essence, that
Mm,
field that is representative of your soul. That's why
mm,
that happens.
mm.
That's why it's great to have those, and it's immediate too. If we start thinking about it, then we become, it's funny. It's just the mind is tricky. When we start thinking about stuff, Eckhart talks about this too. Then the vibration gets denser, right? When we start trying to analyze something or
Start
think about it,
reducing it, yeah.
yes,
Start trying
it's
to
like
figure out why.
right, exactly,
Why
exactly.
this?
Hmm.
Just because you need to know, you need to learn a different way, not the way that we've been taught. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
who has been the most inspirational for you as far as an author or a spiritual teacher?
Well, it's funny. I think sometimes when that question's asked, people go way back. They want to go back
Hmm.
because it's, they're thinking
It's okay
time.
to say yourself. You can say me.
Oh, no, no, no. It's not that it's me, but it's more recent in my life. It's Andrew Harvey.
I've never heard of him.
Oh, you will love Andrew Harvey. Andrew Harvey has coined the phrase sacred activism.
Hmm.
Amazing words to put together, because activism, I never resonated with activism, because activism in itself, screams no at something. Stop doing that, right? You march down the street with signs or whatever, or yell at people for doing something. That's activism. Sacred activism, and how he describes it. He's written like he's a mystic, was born in India, schooled in England, went back to India, then started studying with gurus. He had his own Dark Night of the Soul. There's one of his 30 something books is written on that. And what he says is identify what breaks your heart. It's really good question. What breaks your heart the most? And when you do, gather with at least 6 people, a minimum, well, like about 6 people, and create a what's he call it? A cell of grace, and begin to take actions around that, right? And that's sacred activism, and that's one thing he talks about. But he's also studied Rumi. He's written, one of his books is about Rumi. You will love Andrew Harvey. And there's lots on YouTube with him speaking. Amazing journey. And the reason I resonate so much with him is because he's so passionate, and that's how I am. And it's almost like when I started to read Andrew Harvey and hear him, it validated for me how ridiculously passionate I will get for something, like a child. Because there are some people that will say, okay, well, let's sit with this. That's not me. And it could be the blue collar part of me. My father's
Heart on your
screaming
sleeve
about
kind of thing.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
like I
heart
can't.
is on my sleeve 100%. Like,
Me too. I wear
I mean,
my heart
it's
on.
like that. It's
Me too.
boom.
And you know what? I used to get criticized for that growing up. And I also got criticized, and I wonder if other people have had this, for thinking you always think everyone's too nice. First of all, now that I know what I know, I felt really bad about that. I thought something was wrong with me because I always saw the good in everyone. And I still do. I don't understand hatred. And my father was a racist. I argued with him every day. I don't understand racism. I don't have the gene. I don't get it. Right. And so I don't like running down the street and screaming no at something, because that doesn't work. It just makes the other people more angry. But if we dig into our heart first and allow our hearts to tell us what it is, first of all, that breaks our hearts the most, and then to sit with it and allow like the ideas to come through on how to take actions. When we do that with knowing that we're divine, that's the key. That's the other thing that Andrew Harvey talks about. He talks about the fact that the human race may not survive. We're not through this yet. Gaia will survive. The planet will be here. Humanity might not. And he talks about that from the perspective of talking to scientists and, people who do know, like a Greg Braden. But he says, until we know that we are divine and experience our own divine, not holy, divine, it's going to be kind of messy. Once we know we're divine, that's sacred activism. That's the key to sacred activism. Activism without knowing we're divine is we just go around screaming at everybody to stop it.
Well, give them an example of being divine and not holy. You know what I mean? Like the difference.
Oh, okay. Well, holy feels like it is you're greater. Holy feels like this is my perspective now. It's a lot of times it's attached to religions, but like holy is like you're special. That's what it feels like to me. Like holy is special. Spiritual, like holy is like, whoa, up here. And spiritual to me feels like we're all the same in the eyes of source. All the same. Every single second of every day. Even the murderer, even the rapist, the hardest thing for people to hear, right? And it's really hard for people to have compassion for those kinds of people that are doing horrible things. I'm not saying we all should. We're not all here to do that. However, in the eyes of divine, we are all the same. And once I discovered that in my work, I went, oh my gosh, all these years I was feeling like crap because I was wearing my heart on my sleeve and thinking everyone was in their essence. I do believe that the essence of human beings, the essence of who we are is divine, no matter what color, race, and where we've been. I believe that. And divine shows me that. I mean, that's what I keep hearing, right? And it's a tough one for some people. That's okay. Because that's what creates suffering is, well, what creates suffering, I think, is our not knowing we're divine. And you were tapping into that in another way earlier,
Yeah.
that, having people see that they're really okay. You're really okay. I
Well,
mean, I
what
had a
creates
brother.
suffering? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I
Give me
had a
story.
brother who was my I was so close to him, and he's on the other side now, and he was addicted to heroin his whole life, and he stole from people. He stole from us. He had he was an artist, he painted beautiful paintings, and he was so damaged from when he was a child that he didn't know that he was love. He didn't know he was love, and I couldn't even give him that, and we were very, very close.
Mhm.
Um, and he had the heart, his heart was the size of the cosmos. He would give the shirt off his back to anyone, and yet he was broken, right? And so I saw in him when other people were saying he's a bum, he's a know nothing, whatever. Even when and he was a lot older than me when I was a little girl, I saw the good in him. I always did, and I got yelled at for that. Like I was stupid and you don't
Mhm.
know, you trust everyone. And it's like, well, I kind of would rather trust people and have awareness. Now I have awareness, meaning I'm not just going to blindly trust everyone, or rather, I trust people to begin with. I'll say that. Um, and then, and now with awareness, I can just take a few seconds before I jump into something with someone to
Well, you
just see
trust
where
the
the,
fact that we're all at a soul level. We're at this higher. We are all a part of this higher source. You trust that fact.
yes, I
The
do.
thing that I'm
Hmm.
aware of is that not everyone's awake, right? So people still think
Right.
that their egos. They still think that
Yes,
they are these bodies. They are their jobs. They are their roles that they're
yes,
currently playing,
I
and they get
agree.
lost in that,
Hmm.
which can be dangerous because they grow up with a lot of trauma. They grow up with a lot of hurt, and they think they are
Right.
that hurt, and
Yes. Hmm.
they can't get out of that because they don't know what they truly are, and they
Right.
grow up and they become these things that society says is are bums, and they can't
Hmm.
ever grow out of that because they're hurting so bad,
I know.
and
I agree. And they
and
don't know their love.
they don't know their love.
No,
So I get it.
it's a tough
I know what
one.
you're talking about when you say you trust. You trust them at the soul level because you know that what it is. That they're a part of this higher source. It's just the ego and the role that we need to be aware of, and that
Hmm.
where people are because they don't know where they're at. Like
Yep.
I actually had, it's a crazy story. I actually had my car stolen out of my driveway, and we had just built a home, and it, you know it, some city people came up and took it back to the city, and we found it. We were lucky enough to find it, and I felt nothing but anger at first,
Hmm. Hmm.
anger, and just like, how dare they? But then, like, the more that I think about it, the more that I can kind of get over that and just think about where did they come from? Like, how did they grow up? Like, what experiences did they have? Like, the anger falls away, and it's like, as long as nobody got hurt, like, I'm good. Like, whatever, it is what it is. Like, they're on their journey, they're on their path. But at first, like, the ego was like, how dare they take that? How I worked so hard
Absolutely.
for that, and then, like, the
Hmm.
more that I step back out of that role that is Trey, and I look at it from a higher source, I can say they probably had it rougher than I did, and they're definitely not awake, and they definitely are hurting, and they're definitely coming from a place that is not love. And you know what? No one got hurt, and it is what it is. You got it back. The universe gave it back to you. So it's just like, and I look at things a whole lot differently now. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not.
I
It's not.
understand that.
But
Hmm.
it's not a this place of I'm better than you. It's not that. It's like, I see you for what you are. I see you that you're the
Hmm.
soul. You're another soul. I see you as Mary.
Hmm.
I know
Hmm.
that you're on a different spot. You're in a different path, and and I feel you. And I'm just gonna sit here with my heart open to you, and you can hate me, you can cuss me, you can do whatever you want, but I just know who you are.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. That's very beautiful. It's compassion. It sounds like compassion. And
But it's
I
hard.
remember,
It's hard though because
oh,
we fall asleep to the ego.
I'm struggling with this, with the
Mhm. Well,
situation.
thank you for sharing that story. I know it's tough, and
Oh yeah, I'm struggling with it right now. I
yeah.
actually had with a spiritual mentor of mine, I just literally days ago said to
Mhm.
her, I need help because I'm experiencing hatred. Now I can open my records and I'll feel better. I know that. But sometimes if I'm in a space of I'm experiencing hate, or anger, let's say anger, that's not the space that I feel comfortable opening my records. So it's a little funky. But um, I remember that somebody said to me once, forgiving is not condoning. I love that. I love that statement. Because a lot
Mhm.
of times people lump the two together. How could you forgive that person? It means you're okay with what they did. No, I'm not okay with what they did. I'm not okay with all the things my brother did. But this individual, I know this individual, and I, knew him for years and spent time with him and loved him. So I feel confused, duped,
Sure. Sure.
there's so many emotions going on. And my mentor friend said, we're human. We're human. So we're going to experience those human emotions. It's okay. But like
Mhm.
you said, once you experience that, and then
Take a
you
step back.
you
And
step back, you
yeah.
take a second,
Yeah.
or it's the next day, and then you think differently. Because I've had compassion for this individual, and I can't have that conversation with those around me because they just think I'm crazy. So I have to kind of hold on to my compassion and love. So I just give it to divine. Take care of the
Sure.
situation, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's really
It
tough.
is tough. It's
I
frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And it's funky. It's funky energy because one, as I'm sure you've experienced, the way you described it, one feels dense, right?
Mhm.
Feeling anger or feeling victimized is just dense. Ugh, it's just very third dimensional. And then the other is just like, oh, and when we get into that other, when we step into the other more expansive, higher vibrational state, it's like, I don't know about you, but then I go, oh, I can breathe. I feel
Yeah.
better.
It's like a roller coaster. It's like
Yes.
like it's like
Yeah, it really
up and down.
is.
It's like I'm holy or I feel
Yes.
good, and then it's like no, I'm back down.
That's true. It is a roller coaster.
Mary, this
Mhm.
has been awesome. I love every bit of
Me
this
too. Me
conversation. How
too,
can
Trey.
people connect with you?
Oh, okay. My website is www.spirittherapybymary.com. So it's just, spirittherapybymary.com. So there's going to be two T's in there because spirit ends in T and therapy begins with T. And
Mhm.
then my website, I'm sorry, my email is a divine realm at gmail.com. A divine realm at gmail.com.
Make sure you guys go up and hit her up and tell her that you want to
Thank
buy
you.
that book and that you love her work. Um, Last question, Mary, kind of big. What do you want your legacy to be?
That's an interesting question. Um, yeah, here it is. I want people to say, Mary's that person who showed me who helped me see who I am.
Hmm.
Heh, I bet that's yours.
Mine
That's it.
is my legacy is I thought about this today, and I don't know if it's ego or if it's me. It came to me, I think it was when I was meditating or right after. It was like, or maybe it was running, but I want to be the example.
Nice.
I want to be
Nice. I
the
think you
example.
already are that, by the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy, I'm going to mirror that right back at you, that you already are that, Trey. You already are an example of love in action. There's no way you'd be doing this if you were not love in action already. And I think probably I I sense that when you experience Andrew Harvey in
Mhm.
his writings too, and his interpretations of Rumi, you're gonna feel at home. I think you're gonna say, I think I know. something. I think this guy is me, I'm him. I don't know. I just got to hit on that. But you are already that. So thank you for doing what you do.
Mary, my wife's gonna thank you when she sees that Amazon bill coming.
And he has, I think he has like 38 books. So good
38
luck.
books in
Something
the
like that, or
cart.
33.
In the cart.
That's what I do. I just have
Blame
them
Mary.
sitting in the cart. Yeah, blame me. Gave you another one.
But we'll be watching that Netflix. We'll be watching that Netflix show. So just give a shout out on, special thanks to her on there. It should be good.
Mhm.
Mary, thank you so much for joining. This has been fantastic. Thank you.
This has been great.
I love this conversation.
Me too. Me too. I love it. And it felt like 15 minutes. Isn't that interesting?
I know. It's great flow.
I
I'm
love
telling
it.
you.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, because yay.